Hello everyone on my channel. Subscribe. There's a lot of interesting stuff ahead.
Today we have the film Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Leave his sword and decides to gain fame. The trickster goes to a tournament where the best warriors from all 7 kingdoms gather. On a cloudy, rainy day, the tall and simple-minded Squire Dunk is digging a grave for his knight, Sir Arlon. While the heavens mourn the old man, Dunk, having placed his body in the pit, delivers a speech over the grave. It mainly consists of memories of how Arlon raised Dunk using the method of the knight without a fixed abode, compot, namely, he just beat him. After finishing the burial, Dunk lies down to sleep right under the tree. Upon waking, he wonders how to continue living this life. First, the young man plans to sell the horses left by Arlon, but then realizes that this business plan has a very short planning horizon.
I would leave you the sword, but it will rust in the ground.
Remembering that the old man left behind a family sword, Dunk decides to take the weapon and head to the kingdom's capital to enlist as a guard. Although everyone knows that the best guards are not in King's Landing, but in Ankh-Morpork. But before embarking on high endeavors, Dunk attends to lowly matters, relieving himself right behind the tree. Soon Dunk, casting a farewell glance at Sir Arlon's grave, sets off on a journey. As the first clumps of darkness fall to the ground, he reaches a solitary inn, where he meets a completely bald boy. The boy behaves a bit cheekily and is not eager to help the wandering knight. As is customary for inn servants, Dunk presents the lad with a difficult moral, ethical choice. Either earn a coin for taking care of the horses, or earn a slap on the ear. Entering the inn, Dunk sees that it is almost completely empty. Perhaps the overall quality of service is to blame. The culture of roadside eateries hasn't changed much since the Middle Ages. When the hostess appears, she takes the guest's order, casually mentioning that all the neighbors have gone to Ashford, a nearby town where a nightly tournament is planned.
Knights are just like all men. And how does this tournament raise the price of eggs?
The conversation is interrupted by the awakening of the only other patron of noble blood, besides Dunk, who is in a drunken stupor. Waving a knife, he says he saw Dunk in a dream and warns him to stay away. When the aristocrat leaves, Dunk, having had a snack, goes to the stable to get the horses and head to Ashford for the tournament, as he has a new plan. In the stable, he sees a boy playing with his armor while sitting on a horse. Taking the gear from the child, Dunk says that armor is not a toy for children. Better to take a pitchfork and clean up the manure. The impudent servant retorts that Dunk is not a real knight. His cheap clothes, a belt made of simple rope, and a certain peasant-like demeanor give him away. Nevertheless, the boy volunteers to become Dunk's squire, as he is an orphan and needed by no one else. However, Dunk refuses the request. He should feed himself first before hiring followers. Already sitting on the horse in a low starting position, the young man tosses a coin to the boy, but the boy is too proud and offended to be satisfied with this handout and doesn't even pick it up. Dunk sets off with the horses in the middle of the night to reach Ashford by daylight. Approaching the tournament site, he sees a tent city, almost like the Grushinsky festival, but with fewer musicians, drunk citizens, and overall somewhat cleaner. Dunk rides past the dueling field where knights will soon compete. Then the young man goes to the castle, where he requests an audience with the master of games. Upon reaching his chambers, Dunk says he wants to participate in the tournament. Since the event is only for knights, the former squire lies that before his death, Sir Arlon knighted him, instructing him to continue the noble act of brawling with his peers for the amusement of the aristocracy and the common folk. The master would be glad to believe him, but he needs witnesses that the knighting took place. Otherwise, Dunk will be executed as a fraud and oath-breaker. Impaled is a manner of Ivan the Terrible, known for his cruelty as Vasilievich, but in reality the bureaucrat is joking. No one will execute him. But to participate, it is necessary for one of the noble knights who knew Sir Arlon to vouch for Dunk to avoid any political incidents and the infiltration of mercenaries into the tournament. Dunk remembers seeing the banners of House Dondarion, under which Sir Arlon served several years ago. He decides to ask for sponsorship from Sir Manfred of this house, hoping that he still remembers him. The master reminds him that confirming his status is necessary. by tomorrow morning at the latest, otherwise he will not be allowed to compete. It also turns out that the loser in the duel gives their weapon, armor and horse to the winner to buy them back with gold after the tournament. Dunk heads to the tent city. Tying up his horse, he goes to Sir Manfred's tent, from which guests and the satisfied harlot are coming out. Perhaps someone nearby is playing preference. The red-haired girl says that Manfred has lain down to rest and will sleep until evening. She and her colleague in the horizontal profession slightly laugh at Dunk's unpresentable appearance, calling him a hedge knight, the poorest and most miserable type of knight.
You're a marcher, right?
Which one?
A knight, but a pathetic one.
Disappointed, Dunk walks away, realizing that he won't be able to talk to Manfred until the evening. Walking through the camp, he comes across Sir Stefan Fossaway, who is training with his cousin Remo. Noticing the tall brute shamelessly staring at them, Stefan suggests to Dunk to have a demonstration training duel, but he refuses. He still has plenty to do without being distracted by playing around with noble sirs.
Stupid oaf!
Sir Grant!
Outside the tent camp, Dunk finds a clearing with a tree, an excellent spot for a camp. There he washes in the river, then cleans his clothes using old-fashioned methods, beating the dirt against stones. In the evening, having washed off sweat, dirt, and stench, Dunk returns to Sir Manfred's tent. A prostitute tells him that the knight is still sleeping, so he'll have to come back tomorrow morning. Dunk follows the girl into her tent, where she and her partner are adorning a third colleague for her final journey. But it's just a role-playing game for a wealthy client. In reality, the girl is alive and plans to keep selling her body as long as her soul remains. Seeing that the courtesans, though not maliciously, are mocking him, the offended Dunk walks away. Continuing to wander aimlessly around the camp to kill time, Dunk enters a tent where a theatrical performance is taking place. The level of practical special effects in the form of a fair-breeding dragon surpasses some modern films. The knight admires the storyteller on stage before the performance ends. On the street, Dunk meets Raymond. He warns that his cousin Stefan likes to cripple opponents during fights, breaking their arms and legs, so it was right for Dunk to refuse the training fight. They find common ground considering that Raymond, being a nobleman by birthright, still serves as a squire to his more privileged cousin. Raymond leads Dunk to the tent of Sir Lionel Baratheon, known by the nickname Laughing Storm. There, a wild and merry feast is underway where the ever-hungry Dunk happily starts devouring the food. Lionel himself, taking advantage of his position and status, doesn't mind philosophizing in front of those gathered, recalling ancient myths and legends, but sometimes losing his train of thought in the flow of his own verbosity.
And I say,
Lionel also offers a reward of 100 gold coins to anyone who can defeat him in tomorrow's tournament. The guests continue to enjoy the feast and dances on the table in a burst of unstoppable merriment. Suddenly, Dunk notices that Lionel's assistant is gesturing for him to come to the knight's table. It turns out that Lionel doesn't like how the tall Dunk slouches. The host of the tent believes it's a sign of cowardice, implying that he wants to attract as little attention as possible so that noble knights don't hit him. Lionel advises the young man that since the gods have endowed him with a giant's height, he should stand tall and not be ashamed of it. Then Lionel inquires what gift Dunk has brought him. In Baratheon's opinion, all that common people want from aristocrats is either their help or their head. Lionel directly asks Dunk if he came to cut off his head, but the simple-minded young man admits he was unaware of the local customs and stayed as a guest because the food is good here. Lionel likes this honest answer. He invites Dunk to dance with everyone. To get the clumsy but tall fellow moving, Lionel steps on his feet with his heels, forcing him to move his limbs faster. The dance picks up speed and liveliness. In the end, Dunk manages to step on the host's foot and even bumps into him. But Lionel is only amused by such audacity and boldness, who continues to dance with the tall guest. Later, after dancing to his heart's content, Baratheon tells Dunk why he was nicknamed the Laughing Storm. Once, to test himself and prove that he was no worse than the sailors from Storm's End, Lionel went out to the open sea in a boat right in the middle of a raging hurricane. Dunk responds by complaining that it will be difficult for him to compete against the local knights. Although he is young, strong, fast, and has a clear advantage in size, the other participants have been training for years since early childhood, and experience cannot be bought, no matter how much you try at parties. The young man does not know what to do, and his companion can no longer give advice as he is too drunk and wants to sleep. When the host leaves, Dunk sees Sir Manfred among the guests, squeezing another lady. When he leaves, the young man follows to ask for a recommendation before the master. However, Manfred cannot remember either Sir Arlon or his squire, so he refuses to vouch for some vagabond. Upset that the brilliant plan failed in a mundane way, Dunk returns to his camp outside the tent city. There he finds the bold boy from the tavern. The boy came to Ashford on a cart with provisions. The boy asks once more to be taken as a squire. He proved his usefulness as a squire by taking care of the horses in Dunk's absence, washing his clothes, starting a fire, and grilling fish for dinner. Realizing he couldn't back out anymore, Dunk agrees, promising to take care of him as best as he can and not to hit him hard unless there's a reason. He asks what the boy's name is, and the boy introduces himself as Egg, which is logical considering his head. However, when Dunk introduces himself, Egg says he doesn't have a knightly name, it's too short. Then the young man calls himself Sir Duncan the Tall, a hedge knight. On this optimistic note, the first episode ends.